The file regarding Dr. Sneha Anne Philip begins not with the events of September 11th, 2001, but with the 24 hours preceding the collapse of the World Trade Center. To understand the challenges investigators faced in locating the 31-year-old physician, one must first examine the timeline established by electronic data and witness statements collected on September 10th. At the time, Dr. Philip resided in an apartment at 225 Rector Place in Battery Park City, a residential complex situated in the shadow of the financial district, mere blocks from the Twin Towers. According to employment records held by St. Vincent's Medical Center, Dr. Philip was navigating a complex professional period. Documents from her personnel file indicate that her contract as an internal medicine intern was under review. Administrators had noted attendance irregularities, and a meeting had been placed on the schedule to discuss her future at the institution. This administrative context is relevant because it later informed the theories developed by law enforcement regarding her state of mind. Investigators noted that she had previously not had her contract renewed at Cabrini Medical Center, citing similar procedural disputes. On the morning of September 10th, the timeline places Dr. Philip at Manhattan Criminal Court. Court transcripts confirm she appeared for an arraignment related to a misdemeanor charge involving a dispute with a former colleague. The records show that she pleaded not guilty, and the presiding judge released her on her own recognizance. Following this appearance, the digital trail provides a clear sequence of her movements through Lower Manhattan. Bank statements and credit card transaction logs indicate that Dr. Philip engaged in routine errands during the afternoon. At approximately 2:30 post-meridian, she was recorded returning to her apartment building. It was not a long stay. A short time later, she departed again. This departure marks the beginning of the final confirmed sequence of her movements. The primary physical evidence from this afternoon comes from the Century 21 department store, located near the World Trade Center site. Store security systems and point-of-sale data confirm her presence. A credit card registered in her name was authorized for a purchase in the shoe department. Further receipts indicated the purchase of 3 pairs of shoes, lingerie, bedding, and linens, totaling $550. Surveillance footage, later reviewed by detectives, captured Dr. Philip browsing the aisles at approximately 6 o'clock in the evening. In the grayscale footage, she is seen accompanied by another individual, a female who has never been identified despite extensive canvassing efforts. The two were seen interacting, though the nature of the conversation could not be determined from the video. The security protocols at the department store failed to capture a clear image of this second individual, leaving the clerk's testimony uncorroborated by high-resolution physical media. The video analysis ends with Dr. Philip leaving the store, carrying large shopping bags containing the linens and shoes. From this point, the timeline fragments. Dr. Ron Lieberman, her husband, returned to their Battery Park City apartment around midnight. According to his statement to police, the apartment was empty. He noted that the windows were open, consistent with his wife's habits to air out the smell of paint from nearby renovations. He also observed that the daily cleaning had been performed, but the bed had not been slept in. Lieberman told investigators that it was not entirely uncommon for Dr. Philip to spend the night with her brother or cousin, who lived nearby, especially after a dispute or a late night out. Consequently, he did not initially report her missing or attempt to contact authorities. He went to sleep assuming she was safe at a secondary location. Lieberman departed the apartment again early on the morning of September 11th for a meeting at Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx. Records indicate he left the residence around 6:30 in the morning. The next chronological data point is a matter of significant forensic debate. The apartment building where the couple lived utilized a security camera system in the lobby. Due to the catastrophic events that occurred shortly after, the precise timestamp of the footage was drifted, requiring technical recalibration. However, investigators recovered a tape showing a woman resembling Dr. Philip entering the lobby at approximately 8:43 ante-meridian on September 11th. The individual in the video waited by the elevators, but turned away just moments before the first plane struck the North Tower at 8:46. The figure then exited the building, moving toward the street. Family members who reviewed the low-resolution tape asserted that the silhouette, hair, and mannerisms matched Dr. Philip. However, the Federal Bureau of Investigation sent the tape to a specialized laboratory for biometric analysis. The resulting report was inconclusive. The sunlight glare and the angle of the camera prevented a positive identification. A critical discrepancy noted by forensic analysts was the absence of the large shopping bags Dr. Philip had been seen with the previous afternoon. The woman in the video carried no bags and no purse, and she did not appear to have keys or identification visible. This led to conflicting theories about whether she had returned to the apartment to drop them off, or if the woman in the video was a different tenant entirely. The investigation was immediately compromised by the scale of the incident in Lower Manhattan. At 8:46 in the morning, the impact of the first aircraft into the North Tower created an immediate physical barrier to standard police procedure. The proximity of the apartment to the incident site the immediate area was engulfed in dust and debris shortly after the towers fell. When the first plane struck, Lieberman was at his meeting. He heard the news and attempted to call Philip, but received no answer. The cellular networks in Lower Manhattan were already experiencing catastrophic congestion. Phone logs show a series of calls to her mobile device and the apartment landline, all of which went to voicemail. There was no digital handshake between her phone and the network after the morning of the 11th. In the days that followed the procedural search for Dr. Philip ran parallel to the recovery efforts at Ground Zero. While thousands were reported missing, her case presented a unique anomaly. She was not an employee in the towers, nor was she a first responder dispatched to the scene. Her last confirmed location was the previous day. Yet the proximity of her residence and the ambiguous lobby footage inextricably linked her disappearance to the larger event. Lieberman was unable to re-enter the apartment zone for an extended period due to the security perimeter established by the National Guard. When investigators finally accessed the apartment weeks later, the environment was compromised. Dust from the collapse had permeated the unit through the open window, contaminating potential forensic traces. The shopping bags from Century 21 were never located within the residence. There was no note, no indication of a planned departure, and no sign of a struggle. The passport belonging to Philip was found in the apartment, ruling out international travel. Investigators were left with a bifurcated file. One set of records suggested a woman facing personal and legal pressure who vanished the night before a national tragedy. The other set of data allowed for the possibility that she, being a physician, ran toward the site of the incident to render aid and was lost in the collapse. Police investigators broadened the scope of the inquiry to include the individual's personal history prior to September 10th. Detectives scrutinized the allegations of personal instability and the pending legal matters. The official police report initially suggested that Dr. Philip might have met with a different fate the night of September 10th, unrelated to the attacks, or used the chaos of the following morning to voluntarily disappear. This theory was supported by the lack of physical evidence linking her to the site. No identification, jewelry, or biological trace was ever recovered. It was not until the weeks following the event that a private investigator, Ken Gallant, was retained to reconstruct the timeline. Gallant focused on the lobby surveillance system. It was his investigation that highlighted the inaccuracy of the timestamp due to procedural negligence in the building's maintenance. While the camera recorded an individual entering the lobby at shortly before 8 in the morning, forensic analysis of the sunlight and shadows suggested the recording actually occurred just minutes before the first plane struck. This analysis formed the basis of the family's argument that she had returned home. The lack of a biological profile match from the site meant that, legally, the burden of proof rested entirely on the circumstantial timeline constructed from the department store receipts and the disputed lobby tape. The final determination became a matter of judicial procedure rather than forensic certainty. The initial police report suggested a disappearance on September 10th. The family petitioned the court to amend the date of loss to September 11th, arguing that as a physician, she would have responded to the emergency. In 2005, a judge ruled that Philip could not be officially counted among those lost in the attacks, citing the lack of direct evidence placing her at the site. The court pointed to the gap in the timeline between the department store purchase on September 10th and the morning of the 11th. Without a credible witness or digital record, the court argued it was equally possible she encountered an unrelated criminal act or left the area entirely. This ruling was challenged. In 2008, a 5-judge panel on the New York State Appeals Court reviewed the case. The appellate review focused on the doctrine of evidence regarding mass casualty events. The court noted that hundreds of individuals lost that day were never identified through physical traces. The panel deconstructed the lower court's reliance on speculation regarding her personal life, stating that such theories were not supported by the tangible record. The final judicial decision pivoted on the patterns of behavior established in the file. Since Philip was a doctor living mere blocks from the crisis, and since her passport, credit cards, and driver's license were found inside her apartment, the most logical inference, according to the appellate judges, was that she ran toward the disaster to assist. On January 31st, 2008, the decision was overturned. Dr. Sneha Anne Philip was officially ruled to be the 2,751st person lost in the attacks on the World Trade Center. While the case file is legally closed, the 24-hour gap in the timeline between the department store and the morning of the 11th remains devoid of confirmed data. The shopping bags purchased at Century 21 have never been recovered. The identity of the woman seen with her in the surveillance footage remains unknown. The apartment, found with its windows open and bed unslept in, offered no forensic clues to her movements during the night. The investigation remains suspended between a criminal mystery and a casualty of the national tragedy, defined by a silence that began the night before the world changed.